riffs are too repetitive, the lyrics make no sense. All the songs are B-sides and the cover art's a mess. There's so much here to tear apart. Listen to it for a week, now that week has passed. It's Why I Hate This Album podcast with Tim and Garrett.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Why I Hate This Album. I am, of course, one of your hosts, Garrett Harvey. With me, as always, co-host to the stars, Bambi to my thumper, Timothy Richardson. Tim, how you doing, buddy?
So very sad, Garrett.
Why don't you tell the folks at home what's got you down, friend?
This week, we listened to My Chemical Romance's 2006 album, The Black Parade, and it is very sad.
So sad. I don't want to waste a moment. Do you hate this album?
No, I don't hate this album, actually.
I know. So confident.
It's wildly inconsistent, and there's bad music and bad songs on here, but I don't hate it. I like maybe 30% of this. It's a very weird album, and I think it's going to be a very weird potty. What about you? Do you hate this?
I hate you. I hate you for saying potty. It's a podcast or a show or an episode. It's not a potty. You're not British.
Garrett, do you hate this album?
Yes. Yes, I do, Tim.
This is the opposite of what we usually have, so this is going to be fun.
This is crazy. I hate it for two reasons. One, I think is unfair, and the other is very fair. I don't want to get into it too much, but I will reveal one of the reasons right now. This was not our idea. This was a listener recommendation. I reached out to our listeners and I said, guys, we need a spooky album to round out the October spooktacular. And we had a lot of great suggestions. So many, in fact, that we'll be doing a bonus episode this week. That's right, guys. More on that later. But we had one, Tim. We had one suggestion that stood out among all the others. And do you have the gentleman in front of you that recommended it?
I Write Stuff for You.
The number 4?
Yes.
At I Write Stuff for You recommended this album, and he described it as a rock opera charting a young man's demise and his journey through the afterlife. There is not an album on this planet that is more for this show, especially during our October scare-a-thon, than this. And I'll just say it right now, Tim, I feel lied to.
I'm not sure that I do. I think that that's an accurate description. It's not a complete description, but all those things happen.
You got me there. But the percentage of time spent journeying through that afterlife, you know what? We're not even at general thoughts. I'm not going to get into it yet. But I just want to say, I Write Stuff, number 4, you. When you suggested this, I had such elation. And then as the week progressed, that morphed into a hatred.
We appreciate you listening and writing into us. Tim doesn't hate you. Garrett might be trying to kill you.
I'm just venting. The point is, this was a great listener recommendation that generated just the kind of anger and hatred that we expect from any album on this show. So we thank you.
Yeah, really, it was a perfect recommendation. Have you heard anything by My Chemical Romance before?
Nothing. I have no idea who this band is. I got no history. This is rare. What about you? Is this the first time your chemicals have been romanced?
It depends what you mean by that. It is the first time I've heard this band. I think I might have had this band mixed up with My Morning Jacket or one of those other bands like that, which this is nothing like.
Interesting.
I had melded this together with other bands in my head, but I don't think I've ever heard anything by these sad, sad boys.
So they are terrifically sad boys with terrifically sad fans. And I don't mean that as a pejorative. They are literally emotionally sad.
Yes.
We are a couple of 1-2 chemical romance virgins here. A couple chemical virgins. MCRVs.
I like it.
Not anymore. My goodness. I'm a real My Chemical Romance whore.
You are a whore.
And your getup is inspired. The epaulets are great. I assume this is from the music video, this ensemble?
It is. You remember whenever we did that ill-fated episode on Sgt. Pepper's that we never released? I've taken the exact same costume. I have given myself a little black eyeliner, and I spray painted all of that costume black. That's probably what you're smelling.
Yeah. Oh, it is pungent.
Yeah, we should probably open some windows in here.
I have to ask Tim, and I want you to be honest. I noticed there's a touch of black around the wrists and ankles there. Did you spray paint it while you were wearing the suit, or did you just not allow enough time to dry?
I got impatient, Garrett. I know that you don't spray paint clothes whenever you are wearing them, so I took them off. I laid them on your bed couch. I sprayed them, and
wait, you did this on my bed couch?
Yes.
How much paint is on my bed couch?
I did not check. I was in such a hurry. This was like minutes ago, so I was in such a... That's probably why it smells so bad, actually. And you know, we have a traditional pre-show hug before we start recording.
Mandated by you, I should add.
I take it you have not looked down because there is no black on you.
That is an awful lot of black.
So technically, some of the paint smell is you.
Well, no, I don't agree with that. It's still, you are the source of the paint. I did not paint myself. If anything, I should be even angrier. But
I did ruin your work clothes. I apologize.
Right. Yeah, this is a very expensive shirt for me. It's wrinkle resistant. I don't know if you know that. That means that there's technology in it. It's not just fabric.
That might mean the paint would just wipe right off.
Oh, you know what? It really might.
It's not wiping off.
No, you have ruined the shirt.
I'm smearing it.
Please stop.
Anyway.
What's happening to this show? As we mentioned, a couple of MCRVs. Never heard this band. Now we've filled every hole with their music. Tim is authentically dressed like the lead singer. So let's learn a little bit about this band, Tim. We knew nothing coming in, but now the boys at the lab put together quite a dossier. I know you chipped in a little bit at the end, so it's going to be extra good. Why don't you hit us with the history of My Chemical Romance and how they came to create this Black Parade?
Many of the bands we discuss on this show, we come to find out at some point were acting in concert, either with 9/11 hijackers or at least had knowledge of the plot beforehand and did not bother to warn anyone. This band...
Small legal note there. We do not make the assertion that these are facts. We simply point out curious coincidences.
Right. This band, on the other hand, seems to have been formed as a reaction to 9/11. This misguided album is the musical equivalent of the Iraq War.
For somebody that doesn't hate this album, those are bold words.
Brothers Gerard and Mikey Way grew up in Newark, New Jersey, the Florida of the United States. And
well, then what's Florida?
It's Florida. That's its own thing.
Continue.
Gerard's maternal grandmother taught him to sing and perform. She would buy him his first guitar at age 8. He never really got very good at playing guitar. His first public performance was in middle school, singing as Peter Pan. In middle school and high school, the Brothers Way were big fans of Bon Jovi, Iron Maiden, Misfits, Morrissey, Queen, Danzig. These bands combined with the Peter Pan thing, it goes a long way to explaining this thing.
Yeah, all of that is in there. You can put anything together. It does not necessarily make you talented unless it all works. Tim, did you ever perform in any musicals there in the middle school or high school?
I didn't, actually. I was kind of uninterested at the time. What about you?
I think the term is disaffected.
Prefer you stop referring to me as a disaffected loner.
Disaffected youth loner at the time. No theater either, huh?
No.
Well, as you know, and as our listeners know, I did try out for a fourth grade Christmas musical. I did not make it. But after that, in middle school, of course, I played James Bond in an original play.
Did you write the play?
Yeah, of course I did. Technically, my group wrote it, but you know how I work in groups.
Yeah. Basically, you turn everyone into Brad.
They turn themselves into Brad, Tim. I just show them their inner Brad.
Back to this band. Gerard played in a few bands early on, but he would often leave/get kicked out because he just wasn't good at guitar. Originally, in high school, he wanted to become a comic bookist. He gets this internship in New York City at Cartoon Network, and he got to witness history firsthand when the whole 9/11 thing happened. To quote him, I literally said to myself, fuck art. I've got to get out of the basement. I've got to see the world. I've got to make a difference. So, he goes on and makes this band after that.
Hold on, that does not track.
I agree. His first song was entitled Skylines and Turnstiles and was about his feelings about 9/11. Yeah.
Didn't you begin that quote, though, with fuck art?
Yes.
But then he made art. Well, maybe by his own admission, this is not art.
I don't know. I'm just reading what he says. He forms this band essentially to combat evil, it sounds like, and to specifically not make art.
They fight terror.
Yeah, I mean, they fought a little terror. He recruits his brother Mikey to play bass and Ray Toro to play guitar because, again, he sucks at playing guitar. And in fact, specifically, he did it because he couldn't sing and play guitar at the same time. And we can make fun of him for that, but it's a mature decision, though, to be like, you know what? I'm going to shop this out. 3 months into this band's career, 2002, they released their first album somehow, entitled I Brought You My Bullets, You Brought Me My Love. It seems to be at least partially about vampires. The first single is entitled Vampires Will Never Hurt You. Inscribed on the album is unauthorized duplication is a violation of applicable laws and will result in Gerard coming to your house and sucking your blood. This album doesn't do great. It currently is gold in the US and and UK. 2003, they tour with Avenged Sevenfold, so you know they're on the up and up. They sign a record deal with Reprise, and then their second album, Three Cheers for Sweet Revenge, is released in 2004. It goes platinum within a year, and they open up for Green Day on the American Idiot Tour. Then they get to do the 2005 Warped Tour. So again, everything really is on the up and up for these guys.
Everything flows through the Warped Tour.
They get Green Day's producer Rob Cavillo in 2006 to produce this album. He also produced Eric Clapton, Goo Goo Dolls, Dave Matthews, Linkin Park, Kid Rock, Meatloaf, and Alanis Morissette, and they start working on The Black Parade. Gerard would describe this album as being a really difficult record to make. He said, there was a certain point where it was so dark for us that it felt like we needed to become much more than brothers. We had to be there for each other in many more ways. We also needed to become a new band.
What does he mean by that?
It sounds like banging.
Right, but it's not.
Okay, then I don't know.
That was your theory?
Yeah, I don't know. I didn't think about it anymore. I'm just saying once you ask what it's about, it sounds like banging.
I appreciate your honesty, but no, I don't think that's what he meant.
Okay.
But I don't know what he meant, so maybe.
So they're banging at this point, allegedly.
Okay, no, you know what? Now that you've said it, yeah, I disagree again.
Allegedly.
They are fulfilling additional emotional needs outside of the traditional fraternal relationship.
Yes, and possibly there's some physical things that go along with that. We don't know.
Hugging.
We're just speculating. I'm just speculating.
Are you just picturing?
Yeah, I am picturing.
Hands on the table.
They're so sad. They're
Both
so
hands on the
sad,
table.
Garrett. They're crying the whole time.
Oh, God.
The name of this album, The Black Parade, gets announced at the Hammersmith in London. They announce it. They get 20 guys with black capes. They've got faces hidden under hoods, and they're marching around the Hammersmith, and then they release the name of the album, and they tour for this for 133 worldwide shows. That's pretty impressive.
That's very impressive. No one's saying they aren't hardworking.
But I don't necessarily like what they make.
Oh, no, of course not. I hate this album.
In 2008, they claim their first known victim. The British garbage paper, The Sun, alleged garbage paper, published an article entitled Suicide of Hannah, the Secret Emo. There's apparently a 13-year-old British girl named Hannah who hanged herself supposedly because of her involvement with a self-harming emo cult, which the newspaper associated with My Chemical Romance and The Black Parade. The article quotes coroner Roger Sykes, who expressed concern that the emo lifestyle glamorized suicide and suggested that her obsession with Chemical Romance was linked to her death. Just a small editor's note here. That's a pretty huge leap for a coroner to be making. I don't know if that's in his wheelhouse exactly to speculate on musical tastes.
I don't even know how to put into words how incredibly obvious it should be just from the headline. That's utter nonsense.
2010, their fourth and final studio album, Danger Days, The True Lives of Fabulous Killjoys, is released. After this, they start losing some band members. In 2011, they play a song called Every Snowflake is Different, Just Like You on Nick Jr.'s Yo Gabba Gabba. Then they have a little run-in with Garrett's maternal uncle, Glenn Beck, during this time. Glenn Beck labeled... Shut your face.
That's 100% true.
So Glenn Beck labeled the band and specifically their song Sing as propaganda after it was featured and covered on the U.S. musical drama Glee. He said it's an anthem stating, "Join us. How can you and I possibly win against that?" And then he pointed to some lyrics that don't really back up his point at all.
Who is the us we would be joining?
I think his implication is that musical theater or musicals are for the homosexuals. Again, this is not my opinion. I think this is what Glenn Beck is saying. Musical theater is for the homosexuals. So whenever they're saying join us, they are attempting to recruit people to homosexuality.
Some sort of gay draft.
It's unclear what he means.
Boy, what a crazy person.
This is what Garrett's family does.
It's not blood. My mother's sister married the guy. He's not in our family, and they're not even married anymore. But, I mean, I do spend summers with him.
Yeah, well, of course. He's a very wealthy Mormon.
Right.
And he liked both of those things. Anyway... 2012, they attempt to make a fifth album. Now they're calling themselves MCR5. So fuck them. But then they just decide to break up.
That's a better call.
Yeah. It's possible, though, that this is not the end of My Chemical Romance's story. There are rumors on the internet. People are saying, Garrett, that 21 Pilots might just be these assholes in disguise.
No.
Likely more on that whenever we do an episode on those assholes. That is an internet conspiracy theory and maybe accurate statement.
It's not.
Have you ever seen My Chemical Romance and 21 Pilots in the same room? Have you noticed the similarities in their name? Both 3 words.
I guess. That doesn't really point to anything.
Airtight.
Okay. Anything else about this band we need to know?
No, I don't think so.
That brings us right into general thoughts. Let me just discuss why I hate this. The plagiarism. The aggressive plagiarism. This album had so many songs where, to this very moment, I still can't even tell you what it sounds like.
I had to do a bunch of Googling this week. There was a lot of this sounds like, and then I couldn't quite place it. I found a bunch of people on Reddit whose ideas about My Chemical Romance and what they're stealing from, I'm ironically going to steal without giving them any credit, but you can Google it. This steals mercilessly from Queen, Smashing Pumpkins, Bowie, Pink Floyd, Sgt. Pepper, any pop punk band you can name. There's numerous examples of everything. I couldn't quite place everything like you said, but I think the smart money is on everything in this album being ripped off of something else.
Yes, not an original piece of music in the entire thing.
Right. Gerard was also accused of stealing ideas and direct quotes from the comic book artist and writer Hart Fisher.
I don't know what that is, but I believe it.
So the general theme that you described, a concept album, a character called the Patient who dies in the first couple of our songs, and then the rest of the album, I believe so. We'll come back to that in the song by song, because I actually have the same question. The lore here is it's a guy who dies in the first couple of songs, and then the following songs are flashbacks on his deathbed, memories of his life, occasional adventures in the afterlife, possibly.
We'll see.
I looked up what their genre is, because I have a big question about this.
Yeah,
so
it's hard to pin down.
It was listed on various albums as alternative rock, emo, pop punk, punk rock, hard rock, post-hardcore, screamo, power pop, pop rock, and electronic rock.
There's a lot of those in there, and it's tough to say, Tim, because this is a rock opera to some degree, though a little inconsistent by my standards. That could be accounting for some of the variety.
The main thing that this band always gets billed as is emo, which Gerard does not care for. He says, it's never been accurate to call them emo. Emo bands were being booked while we were still touring with Christian metal bands. I had no idea that was a thing. Because no one wanted to book us on tours. I think emo is fucking garbage. It's bullshit. I think there's bands that unfortunately we get lumped in with that are considered emo, and by default that starts to make us emo. I think emo is a pile of shit. I think they're emo though.
Right, they're super emo.
Yeah. What exactly is emo?
It's a very content-oriented genre.
I agree.
And these guys check all the boxes.
Especially this whole concept about basically whining about your entire life on your deathbed. I can't think of anything more emo than this.
He literally is emoing about his entire life. He couldn't pick just one aspect to emo. He's reached peak emo.
I would also like to nominate emo as the official music of Halloween. Nu metal, it's a pretty strong contender.
It depends on the flavor of nu metal. You certainly wouldn't call Fred Durst Halloween-oriented.
I have spent the last 3 Halloweens dressed up as Fred Durst.
That's different, Tim.
It's just such an easy costume, Garrett. I already own all the clothes, because that's what I wear normally. Got that stupid red New York Yankees hat. Put it on backward.
Make sure that brim stays flat and paint your face up like a douchebag.
No, that's a different guy.
No. I'm not saying paint your face like that other douchebag. I'm saying use makeup to subtly give yourself douchebaggy physical features.
Oh, well, thank you for implying I don't have douchebaggy facial features. Although I sense that you're implying I don't have any facial features.
Correct. You have no significant facial features. You are like one of those little magnetic people, where you drag the filaments to create wacky eyebrows and a mustache.
I have eyebrows.
We're missing the point, and they're barely visible. They're there, though. I can attest to that. I'm touching them now.
I wish you'd stop. Obviously, there's a ton of theft. You've got thematic, musical, lyrical theft going on just all over this album. Without that, I might like 40 to 50% of this album. There's a lot of stuff on here that isn't bad. It's just not theirs.
Okay, yeah, I agree with everything you just said. 40 to 50 feels heavy. At least 30. I'm going to go minimum of 30% of this I enjoy.
It's also another album where it seems like it would make more sense if we were watching the movie.
Yes, and because half the songs are atypically vague for a rock opera, because in this instance, there literally is supposed to be a narrative from song to song.
It's hard to follow.
That's the other reason why I hate this album. Obviously, I had my own particular expectations about what a journey through the afterlife might look like, and it did not meet them.
Yeah, yours is gonna be a lot of screaming.
Certainly. Wait, you mean, when you say that, you mean my perception or like mine specifically?
Yours specifically. You are going to be doing a lot of screaming in that afterlife. You are a bad, bad man.
Jesus Christ, dude.
Whenever we begin these podcasts, you always look me in the eyes before we hit record, after we do the hug, the pre-podcast hug, and you say, hey, Tim, keep it real out there. And I say, yeah, all right, it's kind of weird that you keep saying that, but I'll try and keep it real, whatever the fuck that means. This is me keeping it real.
Well, I appreciate you keeping it real. That's actually my very subtle way of asking that we stop holding hands after the hug.
Oh, I have not been getting that.
While we're on the topic, though.
Yeah, all right. That's for the rest of the episode. I'm
that is nice.
They're all pretty good at their instruments. I don't necessarily always like what they're doing.
Absolutely.
They have a pretty good handle on that pop punk sound. I would actually argue that leaning on the pop punk hurts them on this album. I think it would have been better overall if they'd stuck to exploring other instruments.
He said it himself. They needed to become a new band. He should have completely eschewed all pop punk sounds. When it would convert back to that pop punk sound, no matter how proficient they were at it, took me out of the song entirely.
That's
Are you
fair.
ready to get into these songs?
I am.
Let's hit this song by song face first. Track number 1, The End. How long before you didn't like this song?
30 seconds.
I made it to 40, and during those 40 seconds, really enjoyed it.
It starts off kind of Green Day-ish, like whenever they do the acoustic thing. And then unfortunately, it just ends in generic pop punk nonsense.
Yes, and that's probably going to be a sentence you're going to hear a lot today, folks.
About this song, Gerard said, I think we wanted the end to feel a little bit like the beginning of Pink Floyd's The Wall. There's a song called In the Flesh with a question mark because it reprises later in the record. We wanted it to feel very much like that kind of beginning. I actually think it's kind of, because I went back and listened to this song, and it sounds actually kind of quite a bit like In the Flesh.
I won't fight you there. I have way more issues with this album than that. We're going to have to track this, Tim. So this is a rock opera. So there's supposed to be a story here. So we're going to have to make sure that we track the story through these tracks because it's not terrifically clear.
This starts off with an EKG. He's in the hospital. And as far as I can tell, this seems to be about the patient, I guess.
Right. The main character of this album is the patient. This is the gentleman who is dying.
He is accepting in this song that he's going to die. I think he's revealing he maybe won't be missed much. So throw on the black dress. So gather round piggies and kiss this goodbye. I'd encourage your smiles. I won't expect you to cry. Another contusion. Here's my funeral jag. Here's my resignation. And then there's a lot of the save me kind of stuff yelled at the end.
Because we know what it's supposed to be about, I can sort of piece together from those lyrics that you read, but right at the start of this album, it's not really clear because I don't think that he is dead yet, right?
No.
We agree he's alive. He talks about how much pain he's in. I think that he is even maybe asking to be killed due to the pain. It's hard to say.
Yeah, I mean, we have that deal. If I'm ever in a coma or something, you are to kill me with a rake? Was that the contract I signed?
Yes. Well, we don't want them to be able to trace it back to anyone.
I think this will be fine. No one's listening to this.
No. I just mean that's why we would use a rake.
You are characteristically a rake assaultist.
It's my weapon of choice, sure. I mean, you get mauled by a rake, they're not looking for me, they're looking for that rake.
Okay.
I mean,
sure.
What's your free murder in the event that I am helplessly debilitated beyond all capacity?
How will I do it?
Yes.
What's my method? I've got a whole, is it Rube Goldberg?
Yes.
Rube Goldberg device?
I hope not, but who you're referencing, yes.
Right. So it starts out, there's some chicken feed on a weight and a chicken pecks it. He wants to eat that delicious food. Mm-hmm. And as he does that, it triggers a lever, which releases a balloon.
Okay.
The balloon floats up. As it goes up, it pops. It hits like a little lever that pushes it over. That rolls a bowling ball down a funnel and that spins around the room towards you. Okay. But before it gets there, it bumps into a chair, which wakes a sleeping orderly who has been instructed to hold a pillow firmly over your face.
That is a long road to go for asphyxiation. Tim, that sounds like a lot of fun.
I know, right?
It's a real catch-22, isn't it? Because I want that joy for you, but I mean, I don't want to die.
Right, but I think, one's clearly more important.
I agree.
All right, then we agree.
Should we state it now so that there's no confusion at a later date, or do you feel like we're on the same page?
Garrett, we're usually on the same page.
That's
granted, not on this album, but usually. And I think it's safe to assume we're on the same page here.
I will trust you to trust me to trust you.
Excellent. Track number 2, Dead. The previous track had an EKG beeping throughout it. This starts with a flat line. In this song, Gerard Way supposedly takes up the roles of Mother War, the patient, and the doctor.
Okay, so there is a doctor in the mix.
Yes.
Great to hear.
And so this is sort of setting up the rest of the album, and I don't want to ruin how exactly he dies because it's pretty spectacular, but it sets up the rest of the album to be a journey through the patient's final weeks and into the afterlife.
Am I crazy? I got the impression that death happened pretty close up top, and I looked at the track list beforehand, did a little bit of research. I'm not going to just trust anybody on the internet, not again. No. And I saw track number 2, Dead! Does he die in this track, Tim?
So I thought so.
Tim, hold on. Sir, does he die in this track?
It's hard to say. I can't answer it.
Okay. Well, this is where it starts. I can say he does not. He ends this track alive.
What's your evidence here?
Wouldn't it be grand to take a pistol by the hand, and wouldn't it be great if we were dead? If.
That's the end of the chorus, but there's an outro.
How does that go?
If life ain't just a joke, then why are we laughing? If life ain't just a joke, then why am I dead? Dead. And then there's a EKG flatlining.
The EKG flatlining is a bit of a misdirect, I agree. But what you are leaving out in the middle of this song is what that doctor says. He is giving a prognosis. I believe there's even a length of time that might be mentioned in this song, but I took poor notes. But I'm almost certain that when he says I'm dead, he's learning there's nothing more that to be done. Would you not agree that the doctor is at least describing his condition in this song?
It does appear to be the case. This should really be more obvious, right? Whenever the Who does the Tommy, it's clear they love
we
pinball.
all know that boy got diddled at an arcade.
Is that what happened in that?
Yeah. Yes.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, no, it's pretty brutal. I saw it at like age 8 at Casa Manana in Fort Worth, a local theater. I was wearing a body glove, multicolored windbreaker. I was awesome.
You're still awesome.
Still wearing that windbreaker.
Is all of this song from the patient's point of view? Because I think actually a fair amount of it is sung from the mother's point of view. I think that might be where the confusion is. He says, did you get what you deserve, the ending of your life, and if you get to heaven, I'll be waiting here. I think this is at least in part from his mother and from the doctor's point of view. I think he's dead.
Oh, he's not dead. He is talking to the doctor because the doctor says, during the operation, found a complication in your heart. So long, because now you're gone. Maybe just 2 weeks to live. Boom. He's got 2 weeks to live.
But then he shouts dead and there's a flat line.
You're making my argument for me. I will agree with you to this point. It would appear he is dead using the theatrics that are contained within this song and the title, Dead. We agree, but keep in the back of your brain, Tim, I don't think he's dead.
Okay.
I want to also say, Tim, the guitar playing in this song, excellent. I will also say that this is a direct ripoff of Mr. Blue Sky by ELO, the Electric Light Orchestra. You know what? I want to point out one more thing, Tim. We agree he has cancer, right? Here's what confuses me, and I'll read the lines again. During the operation, found a complication in your heart. So he has heart cancer?
Yeah, that actually pretty much doesn't exist.
Right. It is extremely rare.
Is it possible, though, that he just has a bad doctor?
I like the bad doctor theory, only from the standpoint that how this album ends leaves me so confused. Perhaps we got a misdiagnosis up top.
That's not a terrible suggestion.
You said that as though a lot of my suggestions are terrible.
Yeah, that's what I did.
You know that's incredibly rude, right?
Yeah. Track number 3, This Is How I Disappear. We're just starting out with punk rock now, right?
Solid guitar playing. Sort of odd in that it is a solo.
Yeah.
I think it's double tracked, maybe. It's been a while. Been a while.
God damn it. I have to give you a little bit of credit, too, with he's not Dead at the end of the song Dead. In my notes written right here, you can look at it for yourself. I wrote, is he back alive in this song?
And the answer, Tim, is yes.
I read interviews in Rolling Stone with Gerard Way, and he said that this song was inspired by the real-life seances that Harry Houdini's wife held after he passed away as an attempt to contact her dead husband.
Oh, do you know about this? This was devised between Houdini and his wife so that they could know, as a little secret they had between the two of them, where they decided on what each other would do as a ghost so that there's no way anyone could possibly fake it. So they agreed whoever died first would then do this signal when the other went to a seance to prove whether or not the afterlife existed. But yes, they were huge skeptics. And of course, nothing ever happened. A little bit of Houdini trivia. Went through a bit of a magic phase when I was little.
That makes so much sense, Garrett.
Yeah, I was very little, but...
Do you still remember any of it?
Oh no, it was all store-bought tricks. I could do nothing. I lacked the hand size and dexterity to do any sort of card tricks.
Well, because you've got the horrible mitts.
Well, at that point, I was a wee 7-year-old boy. So
No. I'm saying currently you can't do magic tricks because your hands appear as though you are wearing baseball gloves.
It's a bit extreme. They're a little rough, yes. And
I have handed you beers that were not twist off for you to twist off the top as if it's nothing.
Yeah, I didn't know people couldn't do that. But all I'm saying, Tim, is yes, while I do not have the dexterity or control or feeling in my hands to perform magic now, I also do not know any.
Oh, all right.
I have dabbled in the dark arts, though.
That sounds right. Yeah.
You got me very interested in that Anton LaVey last week's episode.
Oh,
Did some research on him.
Did you try and contact him?
I did. I conjured him.
Now, let me ask you this. You didn't ask him about me, did you?
No, I didn't. In fact, he was very curious to learn about the advance of the motor vehicle and specifically public transportation, i.e. buses.
Oh, so that's interesting. Do you think that every time he is summoned or seanced, is that the word for it? I think that's the word.
I'm going to go with summoned. Conjured is probably the word.
Okay, so every time he's seanced, do you think he then forgets everything that happened in previous seances?
No. Of course not. A seance is not a Groundhog Day situation. He is living his afterlife. If anything, I could see him getting quite grumpy. I don't believe that the spirits trapped amongst us have any say whatsoever when conjured as to whether or not to appear. I believe that no matter what they're doing, night or day, they could be taking a nap or mowing the ghost lawn. If you get conjured, you've got to show up. If they remember everything time to time.
You'd think whenever you call up ghosts, there would be a lot more that were pooping or something while they were being conjured.
I don't know how many things you've conjured, Tim. It takes a minute, so you probably have time to wrap up.
Okay, so they get like there's a warning bell, is what you're saying.
No,
in there.
I'm not implying there's any sort of bell. I honestly don't know how it works. In fact, I'm curious to conjure Anton LaVey again this evening after the podcast and ask him how he knows to appear, but I'm worried he's going to ask me more questions about buses.
That's true. I'm surprised, though, that he didn't... I guess you didn't bring me up. If you ever do, though, just as a personal favor to me, don't mention my name.
Oh, well, now I really want to.
Because I have some history there. Prefer not to relive it.
Can you give me just a ballpark topic area so I know just what we're dealing with?
No, it's a can't ever go back kind of thing.
Tim, you have put a shiny red button in front of me and asked me not to press it. We'll take it off mic.
Yeah.
Take it off mic. We'll conjure up Anton LaVey and we'll work through it together.
He's not going to be talking about buses if that fucker sees me.
I had a hard time with the perspective here because when we ended song 2, I was under the assumption, obviously now I'm not, but at the time I was under the assumption that he was in fact dead. Then you get the lines, and without you is how I disappear and live my life alone forever now. Is this the patient or is this a girlfriend?
It's unclear. I think it switches back and forth, the perspective throughout this entire album.
So kind of like that album we did that was about Spider-Man 3.
Yes, yeah. So sometimes Gerard is the Spider-Man character of this story, and sometimes he is the Mary Jane, sometimes he is the Doctor, sometimes he is cells that are multiplying far faster than they should, crowding out the normal tissues around them.
I see what happened there. I got a little lost, honestly, because you started with Spider-Man, and so I was expecting you to keep kind of going through the roster with your Topher Graces and what's his face?
James Franco?
Yeah, but then you switched over to the characters in this song, including the cells. So the cells are Sandman?
They're cancer.
Well, yes, obviously they're cancer, Tim. Cancer of the heart. We've been through this. I don't want to get too far into that again. In this instance, though, I think it's the girlfriend and the patient.
And I think that the patient is dead.
No.
It turns into almost heavy metal near the end.
I called it borderline Slipknot-esque only because of the shouting.
It's slower and it's less chaotic.
you can still sort of make out what he's saying.
The music as well. It's clear there's not three people dressed as clowns and needle faces playing drums on propane tanks and trash cans.
Right. Some sort of demon stomp. To me, he's still alive. He's saying, I'm really not so with you anymore. I'm just a ghost, so I can't hurt you anymore. I think he's a metaphorical ghost. I do not think he is dead yet. We're still in the 2-week time frame we got from that doctor.
Is it possible that this is sort of a Tarantino where it's not strictly linear?
Oh, it could be a 22 short films about Springfield. That's not entirely crazy. Otherwise, I really have a hard time understanding what's going on in this album. So we still don't know if he's dead. Whether he is or not, and I think he's not, the confusion alone, the fact that neither of us are certain, and I'm willing to say I'm not certain, I assume you are as well.
Yeah, I'm
Thank you. I thought you might be needlessly controversial there. I appreciate the maturity. We're not sure, and that is a problem in and of itself.
Yeah, I agree.
Track number 4, The Sharpest Lives.
Could you ever figure out what this sounded like?
Burden Brothers,
Burden Brothers, yeah. And this is the real problem with doing this show, Garrett. We spend so much time listening to terrible music. I can tell you about Limp Bizkit. I can tell you about Florida Georgia Line. I can tell you about all sorts of country idiots. I don't have room for the good music in my brain anymore. I love that band. At least that album, that first album.
What's happening now?
It's unclear.
If he's dead, how did he just return from a bender? And how much metaphor is being used in this?
I've got a little genius insight here. By that I mean, of course, genius lyrics, not. There's a place in the dark where the animals go. You can take off your skin in the cannibal glow. Now, there's 2 people that commented on this. The first one, in this party life, you can strip off your personality and become this numb monster instead. In addition, when you get drunk, it awakens a dark, primal part of your brain that unleashes the worst part of you. Everyone is basking and reveling in the cannibal glow as well, so everyone at that party is screwed. The second person comes up. I agree with everything said, but I believe cannibal glow is a metaphor, not the actual physical consumption of other human beings, but rather in the sense that you're consuming your own humanity. So there's an argument on the internet as to whether or not this is talking about cannibalism, which it is not.
It is not.
Although later, there are some vampire references.
Yes, there are, but that's not cannibalism.
Well, sure, because they're technically a different species now.
They are the undead.
They can only mate with other vampires, is my point.
I think I've heard the term halfling, though.
So a halfling is like a horse banging a donkey, producing a mule, or possibly some of those are switched around.
Which is sterile.
Right, exactly. Blade from the Blade movies could not have children of his own.
Right. Blade is a halfling. He is a day walker.
Yeah, there was some Ryan Reynolds. Remember
that's Blade 3. Boy, your brain just goes straight to Reynolds, doesn't it?
That's right. I like Ryan Reynolds.
That is the worst Blade.
Yeah, but it's some of the best Ryan Reynolds. Have you seen, I mean, granted, it's not a good movie, but his part in it, fantastic.
As I recall, there's a lot of shirtless... You know what? I think I get it. So you asked, what does this sound like? I've got some more examples. A little bit like 80s hair metal, which is what you'd halfway expect for a rock opera, but then I think it gets very Franz Ferdinand-y.
I mean, that sort of makes sense for a rock opera as well.
They do have sort of a grand declarative style. Also, this one's a little more esoteric. Kind of like a third generation removed Guns N' Roses. It's been watered down about 3 generations.
Current day Guns N' Roses?
Right. I've never seen such a fervent example of insecure confidence. Except, of course, in myself.
No, you're confidently insecure. It's the exact opposite.
Oh, right. Track number 5. Welcome to the Black Parade.
This song, and I had to go to the internet to find it, I will admit, is the exact same song as Bryan Adams' Sound the Bugle.
Yeah, and I did not know Bryan Adams' Sound the Bugle, did you?
No, but it's spot on.
Another weird link. This is the first single from the album, released on September 11th, 2006.
This was 5 years to the day of the day he decided to make this band.
To abandon art for a life of making art.
Well, again, unclear.
His words. Should we read some lyrics before we get into the meaning? Because the opening to this is a real kick in the pants. I won't sing it for everyone's sake. It begins with a fairly interesting story about a young boy and his father with mental illness. He sings, "When I was a young boy, my father took me into the city to see a marching band. He said, 'Son, when you grow up, would you be the savior of the broken, the beaten, and the damned?' He said, 'Will you defeat them, your demons, and all the non-believers, the plans that they have made? Because one day I'll leave you, a phantom to lead you in the summer, to join the Black Parade.'"
He's certainly mentally ill. The father here is sort of a David Koresh figure.
Oh, totally.
With this sort of rhetoric that he's feeding his presumably very young son.
Let's talk meaning. This was meant to be inspiring, right?
Sort of. The explanation for what this song is about, I'd like to think that when you die, death comes for you however you want. And I feel that that would be your strongest memory, either from childhood or adulthood. For this particular character, called the patient, his strongest memory is of being a child and his father taking him to this parade. So when death
Does he want to die by parade?
I believe so, yes. So when death comes to him, it comes in the form of a black parade. Garrett, can I just ask you real quickly, what your strongest childhood memory is, or adulthood memory?
I don't really know how to quantify my strongest memory.
Throw out a childhood memory.
Tim, I'm scared too.
Okay, so we'll say death will come to you in sort of the line at the water park is too long, so you'll be thrown into a river. However, this time it will be a river of fire.
Whoa. Where's a river of fire coming from?
Oh, well, this is symbolizing hell for you.
I thought we were picking how the other person was going to die based on a memory from their life.
Yes, and that is a memory of your life.
I was never once near a lake of fire.
No, a river of fire. And
I was near a tributary of fire, but never a river.
All right, so in the tributary of fire that was near the water park that your father
wouldn't go in. Who's hurling me in there?
Your father.
It seems as though he is asking his son to be a great man and face the trials and tribulations of life. Is that true?
Yes. Is his father Jor-El, father of Superman? His father is taking him, he's sending him off, and his last words to him, when you grow up, will you be the savior of the broken, the beaten, and the damned? Will you defeat them? Your demons and all the non-believers, it gets a little weird there.
Well, a lot of people would cast doubt on a man that could fly.
I mean, not about the flying.
If you just heard about it?
True. You had the same thing about Jesus before you saw him with your very own eyes.
That was not Jesus.
Oh.
That was a mannequin that you backlit.
But you know about magic? I didn't realize you had known all those tricks from whenever you were a child. Came back to you, I guess.
Again, I do not know magic.
While we're on the subject, we might also get an answer to one of the longest running questions here on the Why I Hate This Album podcast. And that is, what exactly is the nature of the Holy Spirit?
We have wondered this for months, if nay years.
The Black Parade, quoting here, symbolizes the metamorphosis of death into the afterlife in this song. The father is saying that he will soon die and will join the supernatural procession that leads the patient into the beyond. The phantom is the third part of the Trinity, the Holy Spirit/ghost. The lyrics, I'll replace phantom, of course, with Holy Spirit. Because one day, I'll leave you, a Holy Spirit to lead you in the summer to join the Black Parade. I think that checks out.
I am not going to lie to you, Tim. I did not follow any of that. Top to bottom.
Whenever you die, your favorite thing comes to you and carries you off into the afterlife.
He will be a ghost to lead him to join the Black Parade.
Yeah. It seems like one of those songs that thinks itself to be very deep.
I think you're 100% right, but then guess who's back? It's the bouncy pop-punk electric guitars.
This would have been 100% better if you had just carried it on the way it starts.
Yep.
You know, think about Sgt. Pepper's. If at the end of every one of those songs, you just had an abrupt stop of the song, and then you played the second half of Love Me Do on every single song, wouldn't that have been a better album?
No. Point well made. Although, in a more interesting album, certainly a confusing choice. The fact that it's always Love Me Do, song about a stalker.
Is it?
I mean, he's very insistent that you love him do. He'll always be Drew.
Yeah, I think
so. Please. I think he's saying, please reciprocate.
Well, sure. But that was what you did in the 60s. You begged.
The song ends with lyrics that say, we'll carry on, and though you're dead and gone, believe me, your memory will carry on. He's carrying on, Tim. He has taken inspiration from this memory of his dead father, and he will carry on living. I believe he is carrying on the fight. He has found some resolve.
No, I think he's happy with the fact that he's going to get to see that parade again.
That's not a bad argument.
And he's not going to be scared, because you've been to parades, right? They're pretty scary.
Yes.
But his dad's going to be there leading the parade. So obviously it's a parade of ghouls.
Yes, it does appear to be full of ghouls. Tell me this, Tim. Is the parade there to usher him to the afterlife, or does the parade end his life, or is it both?
I think it carries him to the afterlife. So I think what you're asking is, will he die by trampling?
Yes.
No.
That's a shame. I can only hope that he coincidentally dies of a trampling.
Sure, it could happen.
He's checking out parades left, right, and center. Those elephants aren't as trained as you think.
Also the marching band.
What if you die on the toilet? What if you're in a public toilet and the black parade has to try to squeeze into that men's room?
Not everyone has a parade. It's your strongest childhood memory or your strongest adulthood memory. Well, again, for you die and then you're standing there in a line at a water park for eternity while your father's just like, we're not going in.
Well, that's just supposed to lead me to the afterlife. You're envisioning some sort of terrifying hellscape.
Yeah, well, that's, again, I hate to tell you this, Garrett. Your afterlife will be literally a terrifying hellscape.
And yours?
Same thing.
Oh, okay. Is there any chance we're neighbors?
I'd like to think so.
It would make the whole thing a lot easier.
We could come over, we could do this podcast, we could somehow get it up to the surface world.
Tim, I don't want to raise any alarm bells. Is there a chance, Tim, that we are in fact dead, and this is our Sisyphean task for eternity to keep cranking out podcasts about the worst music we can find?
That makes a lot of sense. It would also explain our living conditions, even though we presumably can both afford much finer living conditions.
Oh, sure, but it keeps us hungry. Also, side note, I am starving. Did you eat all my peanut butter?
Yes. All in one sitting, too.
Good Lord.
I'm very sick and sticky.
I was going to say, that's a gift that keeps on giving.
Yeah. My insides are sticky, too, which is an experience I have not had yet.
Well, you know what? You can sleep on my couch bed tonight, and I'm taking your couch bed because mine is covered in paint. Oh, you know what? This just has to be said before we move on. This was named as one of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame's 500 songs that shaped rock and roll.
Yeah, that can't be right.
Track number 6, I Don't Love You.
When you said that, I know you're reading the song title, but it seemed a little like maybe you were saying that directly to me.
No. I just saw track number 6 was the next track, and I read the title, I Don't Love You.
It's grating to hear.
Let me say it again. I think just like I did with this album, maybe you're putting your own expectations on the words. Hear it, fresh ears, okay? Track number 6, I Don't Love You.
I can't hear it any other way. This sounds a lot like Smashing Pumpkins Today.
Oh, yeah, that's a good call. I thought the opening sounded a bit like the song Yellow by Coldplay.
I agree completely. And it also sounds, I'm not sure if you're familiar with the band The Deadly Syndrome. It sounds like almost all of their songs.
Of course I'm not.
This song is essentially Gerard, Harry and the Hendersons-ing his lady friend.
I think I know what you mean. A young John Lithgow sending Harry to live on his own. And all Harry wants is a hug. He wants to stay with those Hendersons. But he stands firm, and he knows it's for his best, and he says, go. Nobody wants you here. I want you to go. Harry?
Now, again, this sounds a lot like you're saying it directly to me. I'm wrong, right?
Of course, I am reenacting the scene at Harry and the Hendersons with the classic actor John Lithgow saying, go. I don't want you here anymore.
So let me just ask you this completely unrelated to what you're saying. Do you want me to go?
Of course not. I'm quoting the movie.
All right.
I would like to get separate apartments.
That can't be from that movie.
Yeah, because they had been sharing a log cabin up until that moment.
Right, but they send him into the woods. They don't get separate. Okay, you know what? We're not getting separate apartments. I don't care if you want to or not. We're living in the same room. It might be our purgatory, but that's what we're going to do.
I want to point out he's still not dead.
That's fair. Clearly in this song, he's telling her he doesn't love her. He's asking her to say to him she doesn't love him so that it's less painful whenever he does die, which he will do, but maybe isn't in this song. I don't know if this is all taking place in a linear fashion, though.
It's incredibly irresponsible to create a rock opera in any other form. Unless, of course, there's an accompanying play. So I landed on the exact same explanation as you did, but around listen number 68, I started to think that maybe I am reading too much into this. Is it that they're breaking up, or he's trying to get her to break up, Or is it that she's just going to get a soda from the vending machine and she'll be right back, but he's Captain Drama, so he's making a big fucking deal out of it. She just wants a nice orange slice from the vending machine.
Yeah.
And the reason I think that that might be the case is these lyrics here. And after all the blood that you still owe, and you know what, I should pause right there. We have not even mentioned the fact that every song that does mention the girlfriend goes to great pains to outline how great he is and how terrible she is.
Well, of course.
I'll read it again. And after all the blood that you still owe, so he's done endless things for her, another dollar's just another blow. So fix your eyes and get up. Better get up while you can. To me, I'm hearing, sure, you can borrow $1 to get a Barks root beer. What's another dollar at this point? But you better go now. You never know when you might get a horrible heart tumor and then you'll just have to lay in a bed and die. Enjoy your slice.
So is it a root beer or a slice?
I don't know, Tim. Last time it was a root beer. This time it's a slice. You don't know how often they restock these. And for whatever reason, hospital vending machines have the weirdest shit in them.
Yeah, that's accurate. Did you watch the music video?
No.
Twitter did not care for the use of blackface in the music video. Now, it's in their defense. Well, okay, I'm not going to say completely in their defense. It's a black and white music video, and they're drawing contrast, but they did definitely paint a white guy black and put that on the internet.
This song makes me question, is he pushing her away for her own good, or is she really just phoning it in? And he's not going to sit around and be pitied by a person that doesn't even love him. I started to wonder maybe they were only like a year into the relationship, which is like just long enough to where she can't just dump his dying ass. She's got to kind of stick it out. But she doesn't love this guy. She's just waiting for him to die. And he can sense it.
Yeah, but it's every relationship, right? You have to think about your girlfriend, and is she just waiting for you to die?
If so, what does she get out of it?
See, that is the question. She's got to put a lot of time in, and not worth it.
Wow.
Track number 7, House of Wolves. I liked the opening of this. I'm sure it's stolen from something, though.
I'll tell you what it's stolen from. It's the most common swing song that any person on the planet would know. It's called Sing, Sing, Sing with a Swing, but I'll do my best to approximate it. Everyone knows this song. It starts out, obviously, with a heavy drum beat. Helpful at all?
Yep.
I thought that we were in for some sort of weird, big, bad voodoo daddy swing revival song, and it kind of was.
I think I would have preferred that. Just got to go
no horns
for it.
ever kicked in.
And that's good, because we've discussed ska. By the way, we need to get to full-on ska at some point.
I think we are very much due for some ska, some Real Big Fish, maybe?
Oh, yeah. In this song, he has arrived in hell or some sort of purgatory.
Nope.
Okay.
Nope. I don't think he's arrived. I think he is making his peace with the fact that he will.
Okay.
I got the impression he thought that he was going to burn in hell for all of the sinning he had done. And then I started to wonder what kind of sinning might give you cancer. And the best I came up with is perhaps it's some sort of throat cancer from an HPV infected partner.
Hoping you're just going to say smoking.
So he may have had some premarital sex, Tim, and that led to this cancer.
That is, both of us will attest to that. Premarital sex, cancer.
Oh, yeah.
So watch
it's
out.
the fastest road to death.
Throat death. We finally got back to spelling.
Thank God.
He spells sin so many times, and you don't need to because it's sin.
He's reveling in his sin, Tim. I got the impression, because he's still alive, obviously, that he has accepted that he's already done so much sinning that he might as well go out with a bang. And he sings, and as the blood runs down the walls, you see me creeping up the halls. I've been a bad motherfucker. Tell your sister I'm another.
Is he shooting up the hospital? Is that what's happening?
Shit. I don't think so.
What about the choir boys mentioned earlier in this song?
Oh, Tim, I don't know. I've read everything I can about trying to understand why he's talking about choir boys. I think it's just a poorly constructed insult aimed at priests.
I don't think that's the case, but we'll go with it. He also, and I know I say this a lot, I say this in a lot of songs, there's a line, tell me I'm a bad man, kick May like a stray.
I did not hear him pronounce it as May.
He does it at least once. Only the second time of the line. Am I wrong? Do I owe J-Devil an apology? This might be more acceptable than I had previously thought.
Tim, I will never ask you to apologize to Korn or any member thereof. In this instance, it might be slightly more acceptable because we are talking about a rock opera. I'm going to allow it, but
Fair
no,
enough.
you do not owe Jonathan Davis an apology for anything. If anything, he owes you one.
He does owe me one. A big one. He knows what he did.
Please don't tell us. So he alludes to some terrible things that he has done, right?
Absolutely.
And he seems to be debating whether or not to tell the people what he's done and be called what did you call it?
A bad man.
Or keep it to himself and be considered an angel. He never gets terribly specific, at least in this song, as to what he is referring to. The best I can tell is that later in this album, we learn that inexplicably this gentleman has been to war. Not a metaphorical war, a physical war, an actual war. Do you agree?
Yeah, I do.
So perhaps he is referencing this literal war that he was in and the horrible things he did in it. My point is, in this song, he never alludes to what these bad things are. It led me to kind of wonder, Tim, you're a recent enrollee in our U.S. Navy. Is that correct?
Well, yes and no, Garrett. I have to thank you, and I have to thank this show. I went on a big tear last week about how I was a coward and how I would immediately switch my allegiance to robot overlords or really any sort of AI-based enemy.
Yeah,
so,
you were very quick to state that you were both a coward and willing to pledge your allegiance to almost anyone or anything if it will spare your life.
Right. The Navy heard that, and I am no longer in the Navy. They just let me go.
They just let you go. Do they let you keep your money?
Well, they let me keep the uniform.
Well, that seems like an even worse idea.
Well, no, I mean, it's not ideal for them, sure. But whenever it came time to ask what I could keep, I didn't even think about the money. I asked, can I keep the uniform? I don't actually know what the guy said because I grabbed the uniform off the recruiter's desk and I ran.
He almost certainly said no.
Who knows what he said? Could have been anything.
I suspect it was no. So was it a dishonorable discharge, or did you get some sort of mulligan?
Technically, I haven't been to basic training. I haven't done anything. There's just a paper, and it's just paper's gone. You're not in the Navy anymore.
You know how incredibly rare that is, Tim.
Apparently, more people that don't want to be in the military should get themselves a podcast and publicly admit to being a coward.
And a turncoat. Don't forget about that.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad to hear it. It means we won't have to put the podcast on pause or go with our plan B, where you would write out all of your thoughts in longhand prose form, and then I would read them at the appropriate times as I made my own comments.
We could still do that. We could have a very special episode that's just you doing my voice.
I'm going to be real honest. I probably will not do that. Track number 8, Cancer.
This is pretty gratuitous, right? There shouldn't be a song this on the nose on this album.
Well, I'll tell you what my first reaction was, Tim. I really, really hope nobody with cancer ever hears this song. It paints an incredibly sad and insulting picture of people suffering from cancer.
Oh, I especially like the line, "Baby, I'm just soggy from the chemo." I don't know what that means, but Jesus Christ.
It sounds terrifically apt.
Does it?
Yeah, I think fuzzy, waterlogged. Again, I've not had chemotherapy, nor do I hope to, but I'm just guessing here. It's so specific it feels accurate. How does that sound?
That's fair.
The way he describes somebody with cancer as...
Oh, sure. Some more here. 'Cause I'm just awful to see, 'cause all the hairs abandoned all my body. Oh, my agony.
And that's, not just people with cancer. You are almost hairless over, 93, 94% of your body?
That's true. However, the 6 to 7% that does have hair really makes up for that.
I would argue it does not, given that it is flesh colored.
Oh, that's not what I'm talking about, Garrett.
Oh, God.
Yeah. Gross. It's gross.
It's pubes, right? We talking about your bush? Is it big? You got a big bush?
This song sounds exactly like an Australian band called Jet's song, Look What You've Done, from about 2003.
Yeah, I know that song. I happen to know that song, so to my ear, it does in fact sound a little bit different. But for all intent and purposes, yes.
This song was covered by 21 Pilots, again, one of Garrett's all-time favorite bands. But I don't think it was actually covered. I think while Gerard and the band was playing as 21 Pilots, they forgot which personas they were in, and they just switched into the wrong song. I think
Pulled
this
up
is
the wrong set list on his phone.
Yeah, exactly. This is just more evidence that they're the same band.
You know what? I'm not going to rule it out, but I definitely think you're wrong. He's alive, right?
Yes, but again, I don't know if this is a flashback.
Even if it is a flashback, which it isn't.
You know, it's awfully hard to have an argument whenever you just pepper it with that.
Well, you can choose to hear it or don't. I omit plenty of the things you say to me, so it's more appealing to my ears. Even if this is a flashback, which again it's not, this is far too many songs with him alive.
You're right. That is absolutely true. A lot of these he appears to be alive in.
I'm looking pure percentage-wise of the album, what percentage of it is his time dead. And so far I think we're at about 60-40 alive.
At least, yeah. About this song, Gerard said he wanted to write the darkest song ever. It's very direct, very brutal, but that's the way the disease is. Obviously, cancer is being used as a metaphor. So we come back to a question we often ask on this show. Is this a metaphor? Does this guy not know what metaphor means?
How is this a recurring segment on our show by people whose job it is to write music?
I think this is the perfect emo song. I'm going to put myself in the mental space of somebody that has cancer, that's on chemo, and I'm going to write a sad song about that, and we can all kind of cry together.
I got a real problem with the fact that he references that as how cancer is. Unless he has been directly affected by cancer, how does he know?
Perhaps his Black Parade father?
Oh, maybe. And that would qualify.
Yeah.
That didn't show up in any of the literature. Granted, we are running on a borderline skeleton staff here. We sent down a number of the crew to conduct some polling in, what did you call it, Tim? Deuce?
Yes.
To do some polling among the Dutch population. I'm purposely dancing around the country because Tim doesn't know it, and I don't want to give him any clues.
It turns out they have just been getting high for like a week and a half.
They're a mess. It's all mushrooms and marijuana. What do we have, 18, 19 people out there? Yeah. Luckily, a couple of them couldn't make it. They had various prior engagements. One of them, I believe, was having a child. But they're back at work. My whole point in saying this is there's a chance we missed a couple things in the research. We are still looking to hire vigorously. But I'll tell you, ZipRecruiter, not cutting it.
Yeah.
Maybe if they throw a little money our way, sponsor the show, we'll get some better traction. But so far, not cutting it. Not cutting it, ZipRecruiter.
Track number 9, Mama.
Featuring Liza Minnelli.
Right now they're building a coffin your size. Mama,
it sounds like a shitty pop-punk version of a Man cover of Bohemian Rhapsody. It's a confusing sound like, I realize.
Wow, I think I followed that. Before we talk about what you just referenced, which is beautiful, the opening guitar drove me nuts. I couldn't figure out what it reminded me of, and this is very specific. It is the guitar used in every Esurance commercial under the voiceover. If anybody cares, it's Chet Atkins. Everybody listening to this knows this song. It sounds identical.
It also sounds a bit like the Pixies' Mr. Greaves.
Sure. There's even some Doors in there.
Yeah, part of it kind of sounds like a sea shanty, right?
Well, not just any sea shanty, Tim. I point you to the Decemberists' Mariner's Revenge.
Is this a secret Decemberists or Builders and the Butchers album?
I think part of that's the concertina. Hard to have a concertina in there unless you're talking about the Decemberists or possibly Handsome Pete, who dances down on the wharf for nickels. We have a very special female guest star on this song. Lucille 2, Miss Liza Minnelli. This song came dangerously close to a like for me.
I agree. A couple of problems with it. So it's too on the nose an attempt of making a Queen song. It's right down to the singing it to Mama, possibly referencing having killed somebody. And at some point, it veers into pop punk again. It seems that they don't trust their audience enough to go with them on this.
Very quickly, they're like, oh, power chords, power chords. Just lean into it, guys. You almost had something interesting here. More allusions to his time in war. I want to point that out. He says, but there's shit that I've done with this fuck of a gun, and you would cry your eyes all along.
It seems to be, to some extent, a letter written to his mother whenever he was in some sort of war. Mama, we all go to hell. I'm writing this letter and wishing you well. Mama, we're all gonna die. Mama, we're all full of lies. We're meant for the flies.
I don't think it's a letter.
I think so. I mean, he says literally, I'm writing this letter.
Oh, okay, sorry. I don't think he's writing the letter from war.
Okay.
He says, I hate to see you cry. Now, that could just be I would hate to think that you are crying. But then he also mentions, well, mother, what the war did to my legs and to my tongue. seemingly telling me that the war is over, or at least his time in it. It also helped me to realize it was not a metaphorical war.
My legs and to my tongue. That's a very specific thing that happened to him, right? That it hit him just in the legs and tongue?
Mm-hmm. Maybe he was licking his knees at the time?
Possibly. If you want to depict the horrors of war, first of all, I don't know why you would throw that in there. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't add anything to the song.
It's completely out of left field. Why in the world did we have to have a war element?
There's really no reason to insert this war story, and to make him have committed atrocities in war seems like kind of a weird detail.
Perhaps his purpose was to intimate that all actions during war are criminal, or at the very least savage. Some people are just the cook.
Right, and some people, they're just flying above Laos.
Oh, God.
I don't know. Look, I don't know what the guy in the back of the plane is doing. I'm just out for a little fly.
Jesus Christ. I was really hoping to depend upon you as our resident armed forces expert to explain what he might be talking about here, but to hear that you were just released from the Navy like a wild dog.
I was in the Navy for less than a week. Basically, they just gave me the uniform.
No pension, though.
I don't know. I wonder how much a week comes to.
Probably not much.
Yeah, but I could still use the money.
Maybe get me some new sheets.
It'll dry, Garrett.
Right, and then there will be dry paint on my sheets.
Right, but on the outside of your sheets, it'll be fine.
That's where I sleep.
You sleep on the outside of your... Oh, that's true. You do sleep on the outside of your sheets. I get
very hot. Every time I get under the covers, it is merely because I hear you scurrying around the apartment and I'm unclear as to what your motives are.
I'm a scurrier. I don't think there's anything else that needs to be said.
Quite a bit, in fact, should be explained, but not on this show. Track number 10, Sleep.
So while recording The Black Parade, they stayed in the Paramore Mansion, which is rumored to be haunted. While Gerard was there, he experienced what he described as night terrors. And these are the recordings that Gerard created about his experiences and encounters.
You have any experience with the night terrors?
No, I've had a little bit of sleep paralysis occasionally.
The irony about night terrors is oftentimes you don't remember them.
Well, then it's like it never happened. That's fine.
No, it's quite obvious. It happened. You can see the symptoms. It's a bit of an angel pattern on the sheets in...
You're just talking about sweating the bed again.
Right. From night terrors. You make a sweat angel in your bed.
On nights that you don't have night terrors, do you also sweat angel, or do you just assume that you have night terrors every night?
I don't assume it, Tim. I wake up and I see the angel.
I will admit you do scream a lot in your sleep, and I wasn't sure if it was night terrors or if that's just how, your version of snoring.
Rather than a traditional snore, I scream uncontrollably.
Exactly.
Entirely possible.
So this is pretty stupid, right?
Yeah, it's one of my least favorite songs. I think that he is implying that maybe he dies briefly from time to time, and when he does, he sees terrible things. He mentions that sometimes he sees flames and people that he loves suffering. Is there a chance that he is now nearing the end of his life, starting to fade, to die, if you will, because of course he's still alive at this point, 10 songs in, and he briefly sees a fiery hellscape run by, I don't know, giant ants.
Oh my God. It's possible, sure. There's got a couple of isolated lines I kind of like. 3 cheers for tyranny, unapologetic apathy.
It's a good line.
Track number 11, Teenagers.
What the holy hell happened?
It's unclear. It sounds exactly like Whitesnake Steal Away.
Oh yeah.
It also kind of sounds like Bang a Gong.
Absolutely, it sounds like Bang a Gong. We got to talk about what in the holy hell is this song about. It's about the dangers of conformity and how society forces you into a situation of becoming another cog in the wheel. Am I in the neighborhood?
This seems like a song they had just lying around. I do not understand what this song is doing on this album.
It's a perfectly fine song for a pop punk band. I would argue if there's one song to remove from this album, it is the previous song. If there are 2, though, it is this one. Does it have anything to do with the other content in this album?
I'm not sure. I mean, I have to assume the idea is that he's looking back on teenage years, maybe. I don't know, man.
He's reflecting back on his childhood, maybe.
But it's got all this weird stuff in it. They say all teenagers scare the living shit out of me, so darken your clothes or strike a violent pose. I don't understand what any of this means.
I believe he's saying that unless you lash out and fight against the power, squares, you will be asked to conform and bleed your individuality, Tim, to become yet another square.
If you see a teenager, you should punch that teenager because that teenager is probably thinking about doing something violent towards you, so you better hit first.
It's not a bad rule of thumb.
It is.
But I
want to be real clear. It is.
Agree to disagree. I don't think that's the case. I think that this is all sung from a teenager's perspective, or possibly an adult who's looking back realizing the adults when he was a teenager were scared of him because they had new and troubling ideas. He might have grown up in some sort of footloose town.
Yeah, that sounds right.
I'm going to read some lines, Tim. Before I read the lines, I'm curious if you know what this question means. So if you don't worry. I will read the lines. But the question I have for you is, what's under his shirt? I know with that laugh, you know exactly what I'm talking about. For those of you who might not have spent enough time with the album yet, the boys and girls in the clique, the awful names that they stick. You're never gonna fit in much, kid, but if you're troubled and hurt, what you got under your shirt will make them pay for the things that they did.
I mean, it's clearly a handgun, right?
It certainly reads like a handgun. I think that it is self-harm scars.
Interesting.
I like that you didn't consider that.
I never consider that.
Of course
I
not.
attempt to keep as few scars on me as possible. I've actually had surgery to remove scars, but it turns out, Garrett, it just leaves surgical scars.
So I'm going to go ahead and say that he is cutting himself to fit in, but it certainly sounds like a handgun.
The only thing that makes me think it's a handgun is because a lot of this is talking about violence towards people and sort of a bullying kind of thing, maybe. It mentions earlier they sleep with a gun, keep an eye on you, son. I don't like it when people call me son.
Yeah, isn't he British, though?
No, he's from New Jersey.
Oh, right. This guy's kind of a pretentious cock.
He is. But that has absolutely nothing to do with the fact that you thought he might be British.
Well, kinda. I
mean,
believe that he was posing to be British.
That helps, but I'm saying you could get to pretentious cock without that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Track number 12, Disenchanted. Sounds like life is flashing before his eyes. Maybe this is the song he dies in?
I want to point out what you just said. That means that he is dying. I'll even admit he maybe just died, and his life is flashing before his eyes. I agree. We are in song 12 of an official 13 with a secret 14.
Is it possible that technically his heart stopped in track number 2 and the entire rest of this album all takes place in his DMT-addled mind?
If it does, Tim, I owe that pretentious cock a huge apology.
Not really, because it's still a very derivative DMT fantasy, which we can say conclusively DMT is not known for being derivative.
Although there is a bizarre similarity in the sorts of things that people report seeing while on DMT.
Yeah, you know what? It might be derivative. Get your shit together, DMT.
Well, there are universal symbols and themes. That's all I've heard.
Perhaps this is pointing to the fact that there is one true God who visits all people using DMT. Let's move on. He actually says we watched our lives on screen, and he doesn't seem to be that impressed with his life. I hate the ending myself, but it all started with an alright scene. Does that mean he enjoyed watching his own birth?
Ugh.
There's a line that I kind of like. You're just a sad song with nothing to say about a lifelong wait for a hospital stay.
Who's waiting?
Everyone.
I believe Lady Death.
No, everyone's waiting for their hospital stay. I think that's his point.
See, I thought he was singing to Death, saying Death has been waiting for everyone's hospital stay.
Okay, so you're saying he's a Thanos.
I'm not.
Okay.
If you believe in heaven, you have to believe in hell, which means you have to believe in death.
And if you believe in death, you have to believe in Thanos, the person in love with death.
I stand corrected. I am talking about the female character who is married to Thanos.
I don't know if they ever get together. I didn't actually read it.
The reason I thought that he was not referring to himself is because he sings the songs, "You're just a sad song with nothing to say." I don't think he would call himself that.
No, I don't think so either. I think that he is talking to the song itself. You're just a sad song with nothing to say about a lifelong wait for a hospital stay. He's talking to the song, which is about him. Can't get more obvious and plain than that.
So the song has consciousness.
And it's interacting with him.
You know, I'm inclined to say that's right.
Well, now you've got me doubting myself. Track number 13, Famous Last Words. This also reminds me of Green Day.
Maybe. My notes skew wildly away from the content and the style of the music directly towards, is this motherfucker not even gonna die?
So actually, I have written here, so does he actually die?
I don't think so.
The lyrics here are, I'm not afraid to keep on living. I'm not afraid to walk this world alone. Honey, if you stay, I'll be forgiven. Nothing you can say can stop me from going home. It sounds too triumphant to go with the rest of this album.
It's a big twist ending, and I hate it. I have been on the edge, Tim, waiting for his death. Is it this song? No. It was my sole goal to hear this gentleman declare he had died. And what do I get in the official last song of the album? That he's not going to die.
Yeah, he really quits on us at the end there.
And by that we mean
Doesn't
he
quit.
in fact decides to fight. I will argue against myself as I am wont to do. The argument could be made that perhaps he has just died and he is viewing these events from the afterlife and bargaining to return home or live. He sings, I see you lying next to me with words I thought I'd never speak, awake and unafraid, asleep or dead. He is maybe watching his girlfriend, whom he broke up with repeatedly, now lying next to his corpse as he floats above it and thinking, I would say I love you 100 times just to get the chance to live some more. Or not. It really is a stupid song.
And given the fact that he's not even willing to stick the landing on this, who gives a shit?
I feel so betrayed.
Track number 14, the bonus track, Blood.
Man amongst the gurneys, they can fix me proper with a bit of luck.
I love this song. This song sounds what I expected this entire album to sound like.
That is absolutely true.
It's so fun. It's about doctors and nurses and blood and dying, if I may, Tim. A celebrated man amongst the gurneys. They can fix me proper with a bit of luck. The doctors and the nurses, they adore me so. But it's really quite alarming 'cause I'm such an awful fuck.
Delightful. If you had smeared your face in dirt and you were on stage wearing some sort of Dickensian outfit with drab London behind you and you're singing this, I think it's a good song.
This is what I was expecting for 13 tracks, and I had to wait a minute and 37 seconds on the 14th in order to get there.
But you got there.
I did get there. Tim, how did this thing do?
Well, Garrett, you'd expect it to have done shitty.
Yes, I would hope that, like me, most people have never heard of this band. Is that not the case?
This did really goddamn well. It debuted at number 2 on the Billboard 200. It sold 240,000 copies its first week. It made it to number 4 on the Swedish Sverigetoplisten, number 11 in Finland. It was 29 with the Danes and 39 on the Dutch mega charts. Is it Dutchery? Is that the country name?
It is not.
I'm gonna get it.
You are nowhere near it.
It starts with a D, right?
No.
Are you kidding me? Why would they call it the Dutch? Anyway, it doesn't matter. It's triple platinum in the US, and it has sold over 5.3 million copies worldwide as of January 2018.
That's terrifically depressing.
Professional critics liked this album quite a bit.
Really?
It got a 79 out of 100 on Metacritic.
That's high praise.
NME, number 10 on the 50 best albums of 2006. We do have a Robert Christgau.
I really only care about the opinion of one critic. Longtime music critic for every major publication on the planet, Robert Christgau, is also a bit of a crazy person. So we like to play a little game here where Tim will read a Robert Christgau review for an album, and it may or may not have anything to do with what he thought of that album, and then I will attempt to guess what grade Mr. Christgau gave the album. And that is how we play the Robert Christgau game. Tim, are you ready?
I am, but I'm reading it to you.
Well, yes, you still have to be ready.
Oh, okay, so I'm ready. In Prague, a good sense of humor means so much. And then he recommends Teenagers and Dead. It's a confusing sentence and confusing recommendations.
I'm gonna go with my gut. I gotta give it 4.
2 stars.
I agree.
Right.
But,
Well, so that's the thing. You have to go with what you agree, because you, as a crazy person and kind of an idiot, are the same as Robert Christgau.
Barring the incredibly insulting words you used, you're not wrong.
We like to ask what Amazon thinks of these things as well. This has 543 reviews, of which I read 543 this week. 4.6 out of 5 stars on average, 75% 5 star, 6% 1 star.
Wow.
This first one is by Jables from 2015 and is called
name.
Triumph. Like most good things. I found this album late, but better late than never. When MCR first came on the scene, I judged them by their appearance and ignored them. A random internet person recommended this album to me a month ago. He liked Bowie, so I figured, why not? Thank you, random internet person. This album manages to weave sadness, joy, love, hate, mortality, and all of these disparate elements of the human condition into a raucous, triumphant celebration of life and death. Not emo, not goth, not punk, not exactly pop, but synthesis of all of the above that transcends the source material to cry out in an original voice, a sound of the zeitgeist that produced it, a time of uncertainty, war, social devolution, and above all, a search for meaning. Here is meaning in full. Source, a 38-year-old, 230-pound dude who lifts weights religiously and has never worn eyeliner.
I am always surprised by the personal details people feel are both appropriate and helpful to share in their reviews. In this case, it is a 230-pound man who wants to let me know he does not wear eyeliner.
And he lifts weights religiously.
I can't help but feel like he both does wear eyeliner and does not lift weights religiously. Does he not know that to me, he is the random internet person?
He thinks he is the protagonist in your story as well.
He's not, right?
I don't think so. I hope not.
I know who the antagonist in my story is.
Gerard Way.
No, it is you.
Oh, at least I'm a character, a major character at that. One more review here. This is called Bone Chilling, to use a pun, and it's by G. Vance from 2007. I ordered this to hear what the band played and was appalled. There is a warning for explicit lyrics, but I would never have imagined that anyone would find this music, ? Appealing. I am a concerned Grammy. Has anyone heard Bob Dylan's latest CD? He is the best. Thanks, Bob, for some real class. Stay well, everyone. Much love, Grammy Vance. 1 out of 5 stars. 4 people found this helpful.
Wow, a lot of grannies out there.
No, not granny, Grammy.
What's a Grammy?
It's like a grandma, like Grammy. I think it means the same thing as granny.
Okay, yeah,
It's just
I called my
dumber.
grandmother Grammy.
Weird. I call mine Oma.
That's hilarious and weird. Tim, who's this for?
Dudes of all sizes.
Eyeliner or none?
Not for Grammy Vance.
Not for Grammy Vance, no. Definitely for people with low self-esteem looking to lead a revolution against the squares. That brings us to final thoughts. Is there anything else we need to talk about in regards to this garbage pile?
It's very derivative. I think it'd be better if they had just dropped the pop punk entirely and gone weird with it. And even if some of those musical elements are stolen, I think that would have at least been more enjoyable.
I completely agree. They should have just gone all in. I don't like it, though.
Even whenever it was...
You can't support a band whose best performances are the parts that they have stolen from others. That's a cover band. And so I must ask the question, Tim. Do you hate this album? Did we get you there? Keep in mind, we do not know if he's dead. We do not know if he ever died. He may have briefly died.
I was 100% prepared to say no. I don't hate this. I don't like it, but I don't hate it necessarily. I'm close. However, the fact that I am unsure and have flip-flopped at least 5 times throughout this album as to whether or not he's dead, and I stand before you. I don't know why I'm standing. We usually do this sitting. But
I'd appreciate it if you sat.
I do hate it because
That's great.
I don't know if the character died. I don't know if this album had any point whatsoever. At least if he had conclusively died, we would have had a reason to do this. But I don't know if this was this a Halloween album? Is this?
I think so, because you got the Black Parade. It's a bunch of ghouls.
Yeah, there are ghouls, so we got to give it to him. What about you? I assume you still hate this?
I do, yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes. I can't tell you if I would hate it had I not been primed with expectations.
Yeah, I think you would, because I would have told you all those expectations in the history, because it's not like the Twitter guy made this up.
No, he was merely conveying information that is readily available all across the internet, and the internet doesn't lie.
You're right, it does not lie, but I think it might have gotten this one wrong.
Hard to believe, but maybe. We did it, Tim. That brings us to the end. As always, if you haven't written a review yet, it does us a mountain of good. Hop on the iTunes. If you don't know what to add, throw the 5 stars up there, obviously. If you don't know what to write, you feel weird about it, just throw a little something in there that we'll enjoy. Maybe a Tim Antwoord. Tim's a soul sucker. Tim's a sucker. What's one more recently?
Hail Satan.
Hail Satan. That's a great one. That's not ours. I do not remember who wrote that online. Oh, Stephen Poe. I believe it was you. well done, sir. It boosts us in the rankings. More people see the show, and we really do appreciate it. As always, you can reach out to us by going to hatepod.com, clicking on Contact Us in the upper left-hand corner. Or if you don't want to do that, you can just email us directly at hatepodmail@gmail.com. Either way, you're going to hear back from us whether you like it or not. And now we have our email server fixed, so we will actually get that email in a timely manner as opposed to how we were functioning previously. If you don't feel like email because you're one of those young millennials everybody's talking about, much like myself,
Sorry.
you can just hit us up on the social medias, facebook.com/hatepod, at hatepod on Instagram, at album hatepod on Twitter. Tim, did I forget anything?
Nope.
For Why I Hate This Album, I have been one of your hosts, Garrett Harvey.
I have been and continue to be the other, Tim Richardson.
The riffs are too repetitive, the lyrics make no sense. All the songs are B-sides and the cover art's a mess. There's so much here to tear apart. Listen to it for a week, now that week has passed. It's Why I Hate This Album podcast with Tim and Garrett.